All right. Hi. Hello. This is Azaya, as per usual, aka Stream Dead. I'm gonna very briefly be talking about Destiny 2 and what it be and what it do and how to do stuff. This is by no means going to make you a better player, but it will let you understand the game and its mechanics and what we mean half the time. We'll be going over a couple different things, some nomenclature, some basically slang that we use in order to sort of like help expedite things and sort of as a crash course primer and understanding how to do things in the game. The first thing I really briefly want to point out, this is the screen we're going to be looking at 90% of the time after you've chosen your character. I like using this screen a lot, and I've previously other strike teams I used to play with also really favored this screen to just kind of hang out in because it is effectively a lobby and not a server. Uh, so typically, whenever you land on any planet or whether you go to the tower or whatever, you are taking up server space. And normally that's not an issue, but sometimes you'll have people who can't get into servers because people are just sitting in it and not really being productive or trying to determine what they're trying to do next. So normally what I would do, I would actually be using my like hotkeys to navigate all this. I'll be using the mouse and pointer for the most part of it. I will explain what key does what. That way you'll be able to do both and sort of figure out what I'm doing exactly. The first thing I do want to point out is how to invite friends because this will make your life easier. Right click, it'll bring up your friends list, and anybody near you will be on this column. This will be your whole friends list. And if you are in a clan or guild, this is where they would show up instead. And in order to invite them, you'd basically click on, I believe, inspect, and you'd be able to just invite them that way. I think it's details as well works. Yeah, details works as well. Either or would work in that situation. And that's how you invite friends. You can either right click or you literally just go over to roster. Same thing. I would right click because it makes your life easier. The other thing I want to point out real quickly as well is this button is wrong. When it says menu, it doesn't actually mean like a menu. This literally means like your character menu, like your inventory basically, which is kind of confusing, but it is what it is. And yeah, this is basically all the stuff you need to be as a Titan. There's a few things I haven't unlocked because I'm lazy and I don't feel like doing them. And we'll very briefly talk about what this is and what these symbols mean, basically. So there's two numbers you want to pay attention to realistically. You want to pay attention to the number that your gear gives you. So that's 911 versus something like 907. These guys are effectively the same piece of armor, if you want to think of it that way, but one has better ratings for it, if you want to think about it that way. So you'll see here it has a bunch of like mobility, resistance, recovery, intelligence, all that stuff. Realistically, none of that matters. Realistically, that only matters in game modes like what is it, Iron Banner and Gambit. Not so much for strike playlists, adventures, and quests and things like that. It is something to keep in mind because the more you have of certain things, the easier it is for you to live. For example, like my character, he's not very like he's not going to live very long basically because his resistance is super low. However, he's very fast. He can recover very quickly, and they're basically glass cannon, and that's the build I very specifically was going for, which is why resistance is basically basic in 10. Your power is your light level, by the way. So whenever we talk about light levels or any of that stuff, it is your power level. It is what it is. There's a couple different names for it, and Bungie has finally decided on just calling it power level. Higher it is, the more you can do and more enemies you can kill faster. You also have access to different activities and it won't lock you out because that's the main thing that will stop you from locking or from going to a mission is your light level. It'll tell you that you're 200 leveled, you're not going to live very long. Go grind some more, basically. That's true of everything. I won't talk about the colors of these things because it doesn't really matter right now. It's something we'll talk about eventually, but not now. You have all these currencies up here. What does this mean? It's basic currencies for stuff. So this is premium currency, Legendary shards you can get from dismantling certain weapons and armors, as well as certain quests. Glimmer is basically the in-game currency that you can find just by killing enemies. You use it for everything. Upgrades, color swaps, purchasing new bounties, purchasing weapons and upgrades, all that stuff. Glimmer is usually used in part of it somewhere, as well as legendary shards. Silver and bright dust are typically only used in cosmetics, and you won't ever see these currencies used for actual like main quest things. So you don't have to worry about not having any of this. You don't need it, basically. That's basically the character screen, with the exception of the skies right here. These are your subclasses, or I should say your archetypes. Each archetype has a different element attached to it. So you have Arc, Solar, and Void. That's true of every single Guardian. Titans, Warlocks, Hunters, they all have the 3 basic types. Each one has its merits. I believe they all, with the exception, the Hunter, for example, because I am playing a Hunter, the Hunter's Arc Strider class does not have a ranged attack. I don't know why it doesn't have a ranged attack. Don't ask me. I wish I knew. But Gunslinger and the Night Stalker, both of those classes do have a ranged attack as well as a melee attack ability, basically. Because when you go click on details, we used to only have 2, which would be, I believe, what is this even? Yeah, so you had the sharpshooter and you had that outlaw. And for the longest time, Golden Gun was probably one of the best abilities that the Hunter had, because you basically got 6 super overpowered shots that can pretty much kill every enemy in the game. That, however, has changed with the Way of 1,000 Cuts. This was part of the Forsaken DLC, or the Forsaken expansion. This makes your Hunter so much more of a glass cannon, it's terrifying. You have a melee ability that lets you throw exploding knives that recharge almost instantly if you can stack it 3 times, which is pretty nutty. You also have a couple other things here. Gambler's Dodge, which literally just immediately recharges your melee ability if you miss. And then you have a couple others, Swarm Grenades, Trip Mines, the Triple Jump, which is, I feel like, the only real movement ability you have. Like, Strafe and High Jump both are terrible, and Triple Jump is probably literally the best. I will not go over necessarily Night Stalker or Arc Strider. I'll give you like a brief overview of what they do. So Arc Strider is very good at deflecting things and capitalizing on ground-based enemies. Not great. It's not a great class, but it is a default class, I think, for everybody. And then Night Stalker. Night Stalker is probably one of the best classes, especially Way of the Wraith, as well as, I want to say, Vanish and Smoke. This guy down here, the Pathfinder. Yeah, the Pathfinder is actually now really good. The Trapper used to be the best. That's gotten nerfed into the ground, so now it's really between Way of the Wraith and Pathfinder. Way of the Pathfinder gives you access to Shadow Shot, which is basically you literally aim a bow at an enemy and shoot them with it, and it's a one-shot usually. Way of the Wraith gives you basically blades, since you can sneak up on people because you turn invisible. It's pretty good. Pretty nutty. Not my cup of tea, though. And that's basically the character screen. That's what it do. That's what it is. That's what it be. I'll be talking about something else briefly later, but it'll interact with this, and we'll talk about it when it comes up. This is your inventory. This is your actual backpack. These are all the things that you have in your body somewhere at some point at all times. You'll see like random quest items, random like crafting materials, relatively unimportant quest steps that you can take. Some of these guys, for example, are literally consumables where you use them in order to have something happen. So, Fanus Matter Weave, you use it, and bosses have a better chance of dropping enhancement cores. They say better chance. It's literally a 1-to-1 until you get it. As soon as you get it, it stops working. A few of these other things work basically the same way. Some of these are locked to specific areas. For example, Rasputin's Armory Core only works, I believe, in areas that have access to Rasputin's Valkyrie system. If it doesn't have access to it, you can't use it. that's basically it. That's inventory. This is engrams. You can only hold 10 engrams. I've never had an instance where I've had more than like 6 at a time. It's pretty easy to keep track of. Your triumphs. Your triumphs are basically just that. These are just records of what you've accomplished as a character. They keep track of the score for you. Some of these do give you items at the end of them. For example, best offense, which is literally the only triumph I'm tracking. As soon as you complete it, it will give you 50 points, but it also will give you access to a weapon, which is why I'm tracking it, because it's actually really useful to keep on hand. That way I can always check, see progress, hey, how far I've come and how much I have left, basically. But yeah, that's basically it. Anything else, that's all it is. Your collections is basically a secondary vault, if you want to think about it that way. The vault is, or the collection, I should say, is basically anything and everything you've ever picked up will show up somewhere in these categories. Since this is a brand new account, I don't have a whole lot of stuff unlocked. My old account had basically everything unlocked and it was rough. But yeah, so let's say, for example, you want some armor. There's a really cool armor, but you dismantled it for some reason. Actually, no, let's not use armor. Let's use weapons, because weapons is usually what you'll be using it for the most. So let's say you have a weapon that you really, really like that you dismantled because you didn't have enough space for it. Something happened, whatever. This is where you would go to find it. So let's say I dismantled a hand cannon that I really liked and I want it back. I would go to hand cannons and then I would look for that hand cannon that I dismantled. Let's say I dismantled, we'll say Parimba. Yeah, well, it's a terrible weapon, but yeah, we'll use it as an example. I wanted it back. I could get it back for 500 Glimmer, 5 Legendary Stars, and 5 Gunsmith materials. That's all it would cost. The downside to doing this is that it will be at a much lower light level than you are at, typically between 10 to 20 light points. So you see here, it's at 891. On average, my weapons are right around 905, 910-ish. So it's a pretty significant drop, but you would be able to return it to your inventory, basically. It does cost you to do that. Not every weapon can be returned that way. For example, Service Revolver, there's 2 versions of it. The random drop cannot be returned. However, the basic Outlaw one can. And these are from 2 different seasons, and that's why they let you do it. Not every gun has that ability. So you can see here, Parimba came back in the Fallen DLC, and it's no longer able to be returned. However, you can get it back, just a different version of it. The random roll one was the best one. This one, Hipfire Grip, is not great. And most infamously, every single bow you get, you hold on to, because you cannot return any of these bows to your inventory, because they are all random drops, with the exception of raid bows, which are these 2 guys, and the Spiteful Thing, which is from the Armory Forge. These 3 guys you cannot get back. So if you get one, don't throw it away. Just upgrade them, basically. Unless you don't like bows, in which case go ahead and throw them away. Now, exotics actually can be returned at any point in time. They're just a little bit more expensive, and they'll be super underpowered. So don't worry about dismantling exotics. But typically, exotics are very good for what they are. So keep that in mind. And that's basically collections. We've gone through the whole thing. Great. Let's talk about the really important one, which is your director, right? So this is destination tabs. This was literally every single planet and place you can visit. I won't be talking about all of them. I'll be talking about the important ones briefly, because Earth, Titan, Io, the Moon, and Nessus, as well as Tangled Shore and Dreaming City, those are all fairly unimpressive and don't really have a whole lot of things we need to talk about. They're all basically the same. You click on it, there's a bunch of missions. There's 1 strike usually, or 2, somewhere in the world that you can click on. There's going to be adventures, lost sectors, chests that you can go open. They're all pretty easy to figure out and know what you're supposed to do. The ones that are a little bit more involved would be Mars, Mercury, and kind of the Dreaming City, but not really. We're not going to talk about the moon because the moon is DLC, and a lot of people don't have the DLC that I play with, at least. So I'll talk about Mars first, really quickly. So Mars is special because it has this guy, which is Escalation Protocol. This is a public event that is effectively always active. You can basically walk up to one of these things and activate it immediately, and you will start it. And it counts as a public event, and it also counts as the Escalation Protocol if you're doing a Helios or a CD Nav, as well as like Rose and all those stuff. Those all count for it. It's usually recommended. It says 750. That's to start. The first wave is 750. Every wave after that increases by power, I think, by 100, and stops at like 950. So it's pretty rough. You'll need a large team to do it. Usually what I like to go do if I need to do this, I will go and just go through every single server that I can until I find one with a lot of people doing it at the same time. That way you have a much better chance of actually completing it. Because people get confused. People just think that, oh, you're supposed to survive it. It's like, no, it's timed. If you don't finish it within a time frame, it stops there, and then you have to wait for it to reset, and you start at phase 1 all over again. So it's pretty rough, but it's fun because there's different points. If one of them's not active, you can go to the other one, and vice versa. So it's very easy to do. The other one we're really briefly going to talk about is Mercury, because Mercury does have now the Sundial Spire, sorry, which is the season 9 main quest, basically. Once you start it there, it'll go over to Tangled Shore, then to Mars, and I believe Nessus has one, as well as maybe either Io, I think, or Earth. I forget which one's which. But it's like a 13-step quest that we're not going to talk about because it's really complex and no got time for that. The map is effectively what I showed earlier, but by the way. So whenever you click on a place, it will go to its map. Like, this is the map it would show you, basically. So that's what that is. The other guy that I really need to talk about, and this is going to be the most involved process, is this. This is your quests. These are all of your quests. It will track them and tell you what to do for the most part. And you'll notice the first thing I did, normally it'll sort by newest. What I like to do is sort by rarity. And that serves two purposes. Rarity lets me know which quests are the most important and will give me the best loot. But will also usually organize them in a way that's a little bit easier to sort of figure out what you're supposed to do. You'll notice here, I have a lot of these, and these are all yellow. These are all exotic quests. And so basically these will all guarantee me a weapon, armor, a combination of the two, or a very powerful engram, basically. And an engram is just a random roll, either a weapon or armor. However, exotic quests are time intensive. These guys have like 13 steps. It will take you several days because they're almost impossible to do in a single sitting, and usually require your team to have at least like relatively same light levels. And the most efficient thing to do is usually to have a fire team that has all the quests at the same stages. That way you guys are all completing them in relatively the same amount of time and can just keep cycling through them until you guys finish them. But that's exotic quests. They're very time intensive. They take a long time. And the pet peeve a lot of people have for some of these is you'll get guys like this. It doesn't actually tell you what to do. It gives you a riddle, and it's just like, figure it out. And a lot of people are really upset about this guy. The gun was okay. It was worth it. It just, a lot of people are upset about it. But other quests will tell you exactly what to do. Like Butterfly's Grace is literally kill Fallen with bows and then forge 10 legendary frames for the next quest step. They're all pretty straightforward. Others guys like this guy, Lock and Key. It's literally just, 4 locks. Unlock them. Figure it out. So, I mean, these guys all require some research and background. Thankfully, this game is old enough where people have figured it out, and you can just look it up on YouTube, Google it, and you can figure out exactly what you need to do and where to do it. They're pretty straightforward. The next guys we're going to talk about is these purple guys. I've never seen a quest that's been blue, with the exception of like bounties. But quests are usually like purple. And these are the guys I'm going to talk about very briefly. These guys are basically the quests that you want to do in between exotic quests and in between bounties. You don't really want to track them necessarily, but you just kind of want to keep an eye on them. It's like, okay, I'm going to, let's say, for example, we'll do, um, let's pick something that I don't normally do. So we'll use that as an example. Or you know what? Let's just do this. We'll do this. So let's just do this guy, for example. Anything that moves. All right. It's, complete falling objectives and strikes to get sidearm, final blows with the pistol, airborne final blows with the pistol. That's going to be fun to do. Normally I would have a bunch of bounties up here. And if I had a bounty where it's like, calibrate weapons, it's like, okay, cool. So I can do anything moves and the bounty. And then I can do, and also like, just like stack things, right? And then you have other guys like this where it's like, well, I won't talk about bounties, but it's basically how you want to do these things. So it's like, okay, it's final blows with this guy, but also we have strike. So what else can I do in a strike? It's like, oh, grenade launcher kills. So I'll have a pistol and a grenade launcher. And then it's like, well, what else can I do? Let me see what here. Oh, solar damage in Nightfall or Playstrike Strike. So if my pistol is a solar type weapon and I have a grenade launcher that's also solar type, that's completing these three guys at the same time. And that's basically all you're doing when you're talking about quests, is you're basically like, okay, it's final blows plus solar plus grenade launchers. I have a weapon that fits all this criteria. I can work on them, add them at the same time. That's what you want to try to do. You want to try to get things to work in a way for you. You're not trying to just complete, it's like, okay, I'm gonna do honor bound. I only need solar kills. So you have nothing but solar and you ignore this. And then you ignore like bounties, for example. Let's say you have a bounty that's like, oh, get kills with a pistol. It's like, oh, no, fuck that. I'm just gonna do strikes. It's like, you have to look at it as a whole. It's like, okay, I have a bounty that does, do 10 strikes. It's like, okay, I can do 10 strikes with this, and that, and so on and so forth. And that's the important part about quests, which is why you'll see some of these quests aren't like super advanced. Some of these I don't care about. Some of these I'm like kind of working in the background. It's like, okay, yeah, powerful enemies, yeah, I'll do that as I'm doing like strikes or something, or whatever the case may be. Redeployment is the only triumph that I'm tracking, for example. It's like, I know what to do in that one. Pretty straightforward. Fusion rifle is another one that I'm kind of working towards. And so these are all like basically like half started and like in pauses, because I do have to work around the fire team that I have, and they're working their way up to having this nonsense going for them. So that's what we're all basically going for. The other thing I want to talk about is bounties, because I do have a perfect example of what bounties do. You can have like 50 of these active at a time, I think. But basically bounties, they'll come in 3 or 4 types. You'll have quest at bounties, which are like these guys right here. This is for Rose. These guys are basically like, you don't have a time limit. They tell you what you need, what to do, and where to do it. So this guy, for example, is literally complete encounters at a Blindwell, Black Armory Forges, or Escalation Protocols. You need 35 of those encounters. Good luck. It's pretty easy. The other one would be, band together. It's like complete a Nightfall Strike with a score of 50,000 or higher. That's, again, pretty straightforward. I don't have a key item for it yet, which is why I haven't completed it, because it's a lot easier to complete once you have access to a key item that you get as an unlock later. But yeah, these aren't timed. These can just sit in your bounty inventory basically forever. So that's, just keep that in mind. Then you have the other 2 bounties here. You have a weekly bounty, which has a time limit of literally 7 days from the time you pick it up. So from the time that I pick this up to 6 days and 3 hours from now, it will expire. It will give you like 1 hour of leeway afterwards to like complete it, or as soon as you leave an area. So if it's expired and you go to the Dreaming City, as long as you still complete it in the Dreaming City within an hour after it expires, you can still get those rewards. If you go to the Dreaming City and either the extra hour expires or you leave the Dreaming City, the bounty will just expire and time out, and you will get none of those rewards, and you have to start all over again. That's kind of the lame thing about it. The other type of a bounty is your daily bounty. Your daily bounties are usually very straightforward. They're very easy to do. You can do them in probably 10 minutes. And they're all tell you exactly what you need to do, what the rewards are, and how to do it. So this one's literally just get void kills on Mars, 30 of them. Straightforward. I got this last night and I didn't do it because I was lazy. I didn't feel like doing it. But I have 7 hours left to complete it, which I probably will. There's no reason not to. I'm over halfway done with it, so it's pretty straightforward. That's it, really. That's all you have to do. And you'll have other bounties that are a little bit more involved. It'll be like, get 30 multi kills, or get 30 power weapon kills, stuff like that. But speaking of all this stuff, keeping track of it, but also like doing efficient like inventory management, and like, keeping track of this, like this is an arc weapon. If I needed like a void weapon, I have Borealis, or Subtle Calamity, or whatever. And let's say I needed to, I need to go to Mars. I'll go to Mars and do the thing. And what you should probably just notice is I flipped through maybe like 3 menus in like seconds. And that's sort of the second thing I want to talk about, is efficient inventory timing and management. So instead of waiting for things and like going places and like waiting to like load into an area, Destiny 2 lets you manage your inventory basically wherever you are, with the exception of a couple of things. You can open up your inventory, swap out a weapon, and then get right into a fight immediately after you open it. This is actually really inefficient, but I'll do it, I guess. There we go. We'll do that instead. But yeah, so for example, I need to go to Mars. So I'll go to Mars. I'll go to Braytech Futurescape. I'll launch it. And then as soon as this comes up, I can go immediately to my inventories, check this, be like, okay, I need, a certain amount of kills. I'll have, Scathe Lock on, and I really like the Borealis, so I'll switch back over to the Borealis, and, I'm pretty much good to go. So it's like, I'm ready. I just need to wait for this to go through. I exit out. I'm still loading, so I can go back in and like, okay, what else can I do in the meantime? It's like, well, I don't really do anything here. Let's check my quests. What can I do here? Like void kills. Yeah, let's track that. Face the hordes. I might do that. Let's see here. Let's organize this a little bit. What else can I do? And then there's audio cues in the game. Like I just heard my dropship come out of space, so I can exit out and be like, okay, I'm ready to go. And somebody's actually doing the escalation protocol. Oh no, it's an injection rig. Okay. And so that's part of efficient inventory management, is basically being able to go back and forth and be like, okay, and I got the thing I need to do. I can bring up a menu real quick and do whatever. But it sounds really impressive, but you don't know how to do it, right? The easiest way to do it is you bind your keys to something pretty efficient. I believe my character menu is bound to F1. So I hit F1, it brings up this. And, you do inventory management, whatever. But if you wanted to go to like your director, normally what you'd have to do is you hit tab, and then you hold tab, and then you go over to your quests, which is, in my opinion, not super efficient. Instead, I do this. And you guys have no idea how I did that, right? So the fastest way to do it is you literally hit your character menu. So it's F1. And then you immediately hit tab. And then you can just go over to your quests much faster that way. Because like Destiny, I love it, but it's not super efficient, and it's what it does. Which is why I'm able to swap back and forth that quickly. So I'm going to leave and go to orbit real quick here. Unfortunately, there's no fast way to go to orbit. You just have to hold O, unfortunately. But while that's loading, I wanted to talk about this last thing here, because this has turned into a very long video. What I really wanted to talk about is, how do I really like understand what I need to do, where to go, how do I keep track of it without staring at a menu for like 16 minutes. You have 2 things you need to look into very quickly. You have braytech.org and destiny-item-manager.com. These two guys will save you a lot of time, effort, and heartache. So what Destiny Item Manager lets you do, it lets you basically take items from either your vault, other characters you have, so other guardians you have, and it lets you just swap stuff out. So if I didn't want the Risk Runner anymore, I could just throw that over to this character and she would have it. So if you guys want to see that in real time, we can let's click on that. So let's say I wanted the Risk Runner back. So I would literally just drag it back over. And it immediately comes back to my inventory. You get the notification, lets you know. It's like, hey, it's here. Cool. That's Item Manager. It's super cool if you're going through multiple guardians, sort of just to like play a couple different things. Best way to do it. But BreakTech is really the resource you're going to be using, at least I use a lot, in order to track exactly what's happening. More specifically, this is basically what I use to make sure I'm on the right path for certain things. So if I needed to check, let's say quests, for example, I would click on the quest tabs if it works. There we go. And it gives you your entire list. And by the way, this is organized the same way I organize it: exotics and then your normal quests that give you less things. What I really like about it is that it does not give you percentages. It literally gives you the actual number you need. So normally it would tell you like 2% out of 100 or out of 2% out of nothing, basically. This literally tells you 3 out of 125. Much easier, much better, much faster. And it has the same resource for everything. So if you ever need to look at something, you just click on it and it'll let you know exactly what you need to do, where to go, how many steps are left. By the way, Imperial Invitation, there's 12 steps. Golden Hero, that has 5. Let Flies only have 1. Mysterious Box has 7. Rat King's Crew doesn't have everything because they did it on purpose, and so on and so forth. It tells you exactly how many steps there are and what place you are in them, which is really helpful because then you know, okay, the next one I need to do, I need this or that or the other. Don't throw away this thing, all that stuff, basically. The other thing that's really useful for me is the map, because the map function is probably kind of the coolest thing to have and makes my life easier when you're looking for collectibles. And I need to try to keep this a little bit shorter because we're at 30 minutes. So the map basically is exactly what it sounds like. It is a map of every single location. So Tower, EDZ, Moon, Titan, Arcadia Valley, Fields of Glass, Mars, Tangled Shore, Dreaming City. And it lists everything on there. It tells you, what you need to find, where to find it, just random stuff. These are all like scannable things that will go towards your triumphs. So if you're like looking to like 100% something, because some of these triumphs do give you items, basically, this is basically how you do it. Like if you need help finding something, it's like, well, I don't know where like something is. It's like I missed, Feline Friend 4. It tells you exactly where it is. Same thing with Checklist. Checklist does basically the same thing, except it's all in text form. So it tells you what you have done and what you haven't done, how to do it usually. So you click on it. It's like, where do I do? It tells you where it is. It's like, here it is. Go do it. Honestly, that's the best resource I have. BreakTech.org and Destiny Item Manager, both of them do require you to link your Bungie account or your Steam account, whatever you're using, in order to use them. But other than that, it's like straightforward, super easy. It's good times. That's where I'm going to leave this, though. I hope that helped. Sort of making life easier, doing stuff. I think that's all I needed to talk about in order to help people sort of understand what they're doing and how to like menu faster and just learning what buttons do. I like how this is blinking until it goes away there. Cool. Yeah, that'll be it. GG, everybody.